Hello, you're watching TVP World Talks. I'm Konrad. The European Union is bracing for the impact of Trump's sweeping import tariffs, with stock markets around the world reeling from the resulting shockwave. How should the bloc respond to the US president's unorthodox approach? Can a mutually beneficial offer quell Trump's resentment towards the European Union, which he has repeatedly accused of ripping America off through trade barriers? Joining us now is Konrad Popławski, project coordinator at the Center for Eastern Studies, expert in the field of international economic relations, supply chains and transport policy. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Good morning.
So can we still avoid a trade war?
That's very difficult to answer right now. Actually, we are already a little bit in the middle of the trade war. We'll see what responses are of the EU side of China. But we are at least at the beginning, and we are
mustering our forces. Right?
Of course, and we are still not sure what really Trump means. If he really wants some deals, or he just needs an excuse to introduce tariffs, as he believes it could be a measure to make America great again.
That's an interesting question, really, because some countries have already said, "Okay, we're going to do zero tariffs," but he said it's not enough.
Yeah, that's right. Now we are testing Trump. Vietnam, EU, many countries offer this zero tariff approach, and that's a puzzling right now how Trump would react. We are pretty sure that he could be still very tough on China, but we hope that at least towards his allies he could be more understanding and offer some good deals for both sides, not only for the US.
So what incentives do we have? Because the EU is saying, okay, we want to negotiate, but at the same time we are preparing reciprocal measures and we will use them if needed. So on the positive side, incentives, what can the European Union offer?
Okay, so first we need to take a real approach, and the fact is that I would say that EU was more beneficial in this relation towards the US. So at least we could offer to buy some more American goods like energy resources, as we did during the first Trump tenure, Trump 1.0. We could also reduce our tariffs, because when it comes, for example, to the automobile sector, our tariffs were so far higher than the US ones. Another thing is non-tariff measures. So if we could eliminate some barriers to trade, getting from the some national regulations, some bureaucratic measures, and so on.
So let's look at this for a moment from the perspective of the US. Trump says, for example, if you want a fair deal, get rid of the VAT, value-added tax. The US doesn't have it. The rest of the world is kind of dependent on it. Do you think that this is even something that we could negotiate?
I think this is off the table. You know, creating EU tax scheme. It was years of very tough negotiations among the EU states, and abolishing it would mean degrading the whole structure, because it's very complex to install such system among 27 member states. So actually there were some talks in the past that actually the US believes that EU has better tax system than the US, but they couldn't introduce it due to some stalls on their domestic scene. So actually we shouldn't, get too much concessions, do too much concessions towards the US and degrade our system.
Trump says this is discriminatory. And for example, I mean, if you're buying stuff on eBay, just as a consumer,
yes,
and you do actually get VAT imposed if you import something into the European Union from the US, even if it is second-hand. So now the Americans might be excused for looking at this and saying, wow, why is this happening? Yeah,
that's true. That you could say that there is some a little bit injustice there, but on the other hand, they could offer similar solutions to their importers and their exporters, because VAT is in fact a tax favoring exports than imports. But why not to introduce such measures in the US on the consumption? Yeah?
What about the automotive sector?
Yeah.
This is again problematic, because on the one hand you have American cars very expensive in Europe, cars which would be available to the average working class person, like a pickup truck. In Europe, It is a luxury car, effectively, judging by the prices. But on the other hand, the trade war here, a huge problem for the European Union. Poland, for example, it's 8% of the GDP, right?
Yeah.
This is the automotive sector. Poland's prime minister is already talking to representatives of the industry. They're afraid they might be losing their jobs if this trade war continues.
I would say that this point of critique of Trump is straight to the point. In the automotive sector, the relation was quite imbalanced, and actually automobile sector generated a lot of this trade surplus of EU towards the US. So here we would need some more fair approach, and maybe in this sector, this zero tariff approach would be needed.
Elon Musk says this is a good option, but Washington says no. One of the representatives said, well, Elon Musk is saying that because he is a car assembler. He needs those parts from all around the world, but it is his business and not ours. Can we see a rift emerging there, actually, in this approach?
Yeah, we see some rifts in the US camp, in the conservatives camp. We see that this turmoil on the financial markets gets some business people to panic, and many are asking if we have a pilot in a cockpit of our big plane called America. And that's why, and it's a good question, you know, if there is strategy beyond this Trump approach, or it is just very emotional, tick-tacking and so on.
But briefly, people who actually do have securities, should they just avert their eyes for a moment? I mean, everything is in the red, and people might be tempted to basically sell their securities because they panic. What would you say to them? Not to actually give in to such instincts.
No, I
mean, the Warsaw Stock Exchange went, it crashed down. Trading was briefly suspended even.
Yeah, of course. I wouldn't like to advise people with their own assets, but in my opinion, we could somehow stabilize it. I don't think that Trump would like to ruin the economy, and I think he might be prone to better deals. And especially if he sees that some tactics, some strategies, they don't lead to his aim, and his aim is not to destroy the economy.
So right?
He might be prone to some compromises.
One final question. We've mentioned incentives. Now, how about the nuclear weapon, the anti-coercion instrument? This is something the EU has, but will it use it? What is it about?
Mm-hmm. Anti-coercion instrument, it's an instrument to oppose some attempts to intimidate EU countries. So it is quite much simpler instrument to react to such situations. We used it, for example, in case of China several times, and we actually made up this instrument to counteract to China. Right now, it could be used in case of the US, but
big tech companies are mentioned in this context.
Yeah, but still, we need qualified majority of the EU countries, and it's very uncertain if all the countries would try to go for such atomic bomb measure.
Yeah, some of them would actually like to adopt a wait-and-see approach. Very difficult issues there, absolutely fascinating subject. Unfortunately, we have, for the time being, run out of time. Konrad Popławski was our guest today here on TVP World. Thank you very much for joining us and sharing your insight.
Thank you.
And I'm You're watching TVP World. Please do stay with us for more latest news and updates.